Are you looking at my big fat head again? Yes, you are. I didn't want to do it. I kind of hate doing it like this because it makes the editing a pain in the ass, and I have to wear these shades indoors like a dumbass because it's distracting to see my eyes darting back and forth over the teleprompter. But it's the only way to do this for a movie new enough to have not nearly enough relevant clips and images available online legally, and I was totally planning to cover something else this week because I even resent the appearance of chasing the algorithm. But the discourse around The Last Jedi is so goddamn toxic that it's kind of hard to ignore, and yeah, come to think of it, getting this off my chest this way is almost certainly better for business than trying to sell 5 or 6 different freelance articles in this economy, and it is December, so okay, let's do this. I loved it. I thought it was great. Completely understand why some people did not, but I think it's a great film, and what I love about it is that it's as good at breaking the Star Wars mold to do new things as The Force Awakens was at filling up the mold to remind you why it became the mold to begin with. Beyond that, you can watch my full review over on geek.com and get the non-spoiler version of what I think about this one. Here's the thing. The most interesting decision that's been made so far about the new trilogy is that it's exceptionally meta about its characters and overall narrative. The younger generation of filmmakers entrusted with the complicated legacy of Star Wars have decided that their inaugural run of direct continuation stories in that realm will be about a new younger generation of characters entrusted with the complicated legacy of Star Wars. Most obviously in terms of Rey and Kylo Ren, both being metaphorical fanboy archetypes, both obsessed with memorabilia and stories about what happened in the previous 6 movies and angling to define their identity in those terms. Or, if you want to put it more bluntly, Anakin and Luke's stories were both about kids' complicated relationship with their parents who didn't really raise them, while Rey and Ren's stories are both about kids with complicated relationships with the media that did raise them, namely the first 6 Star Wars movies. And in case you were worried that they might be subtle about that metaphor, everyone in the first movie keeps wondering when Luke is going to show up because they know the audience is thinking the same damn thing. So, whereas The Force Awakens was essentially a movie where the guy who really wants to be the new Darth Vader and the girl who just found out she might be the new Luke Skywalker, and she takes to the idea really quick, The Last Jedi now kind of inevitably has to be the movie about losing those illusions and accepting that the stuff you grew up fixating on isn't perfect, set in stone, off limits to questioning, or above recontextualizing, because otherwise, why are we bothering to make more of it? You can't keep building on a franchise that you want to keep going for decades, and Disney did not spend $4 billion with a B dollars on this for it not to keep going for decades. If you let it stand either canonically or metaphorically that nothing will ever be as important as the parts from 30 years ago, or that none of the ideas, lessons, or truths can ever be challenged. That's not how it works. Which basically means that the second installment of this pretty much had to be a story about fucking up repeatedly, being defeated, losing badly, and finding out that the authority figures and/or legends had kept you in the dark about some pretty important information. Fortunately, this is Star Wars, where stories about fucking up repeatedly, being defeated, losing badly, and finding out that authority figures and/or legends had kept you in the dark about some pretty important information tend to be the best of their respective cycles. No, that doesn't mean Revenge of the Sith is good, just that it was better than the other two anyway. That's why I love what this movie does with Luke Skywalker, and why I'm really kind of puzzled why some fans are reacting so badly to his parts, even though I'm not really surprised. I mean, forgetting for a minute that badass full Jedi Luke isn't really all that interesting in Return of the Jedi outside of the whole will he won't he business with the hand and the black outfit, so I've never really gotten why people think they want more of that. What else was the expectation here? If anything, the complaint should be that it's not enough of a surprise, because after Obi-Wan, Yoda, and now Luke, it seems like turning into a weird old hermit is pretty much the only retirement plan the Jedi have. Plus, not only would it be untrue to the new generation correcting the mistakes of the old meta-narrative at play in this series, having awesome dad actually roll in and be the key to saving the universe wouldn't be true to the Star Wars universe in the broader sense. This isn't the series where daddy figures save the day. This is where daddy figures fuck up and disappoint you, and if they are going to finally be of help, it's probably going to come at the last possible minute at the cost of their own lives, like the big Force-sensitive drama queens that they are. More to the point, it makes him a much more active part of our new story for the main characters. Being reminded that Luke's central character flaw in the original trilogy was that he was self-absorbed and wildly overcorrects when he screws up drives home the more personality-driven issues that the older and now more wildly overcorrecting version of him shares with Rey, namely self-hatred and deeply buried resentment about their own backgrounds. I mean, that's why the big scary presence under the island that Luke is so afraid of turns out to be a mirror. They don't make these things subtle, folks. The whole Rey is a Mary Sue thing is 1000% about violently resenting the fact that a new set of Star Wars movies has a woman protagonist. That's it. Bottom line, if you want to well actually me about it, please log off and confront your own biases. Or go take a look at the same dudes flipping their shit about Laura Dern's character having purple hair because the men's rights internet goons decided that that was a signifier of something. In any case, Mary Sue has always been a particularly dopey criticism tool for anything outside the realm of fanfiction it was derived from, but it's used especially badly here because it tends to be held up as meaning that a character is too good at certain things or has special powers for no reasons, and ability was never what the Mary Sue criticism was about. It was meant to refer to figures who don't have personality or character flaws, and Rey has plenty of those. Namely, she's self-absorbed, short-sighted, and as of this, more than a little self-hating, just like Luke is. But whereas Luke is terrified of either himself or anyone else in his lineage, hence what went down with Kylo Ren inheriting the evil shit that was in his father, Rey resents her origins, her station, and even the idea that she might be just a poor nobody from a nothing planet. That's why she jumps so fast at the idea of being Force-sensitive in the last one. That's why she's so headstrong to go ask Luke to make her a Jedi in this one. And now, according to this one, her inferiority complex is so pronounced it's likely that she's known the whole time that there was no great mystery about her parents and managed to suppress it because it was better not to know than admit that she doesn't have a special background, which is kind of the pathology that's going to happen if the reigning historical mythology of your culture is all about the fate of the galaxy relying on people with the right background using their special people powers. Again, this is the meta part of this whole new narrative. One of the ways Star Wars got stuck jogging in place as a franchise for so long is that after the big twist in Empire, a series that already had kind of a weird relationship with the way it dealt with having modern-feeling characters inhabiting a universe running largely on medieval social systems. I mean, guys, this is a good versus evil story where the evil empire was a relatively new thing that's been around for maybe 20 years, and the rebels were led by an aristocrat who was in fact a literal princess from one of the royal families, so yeah, mixed messages is putting it lightly. Point is, that's why the twist of her parents being nobody special is brilliant, because it's a literalization of what now seems to be coming into focus as the main thrust of the new trilogy, blowing up the old systems of what was possible or allowable in the Star Wars universe, in the broad sense, because you have to do it literally in these movies, or the pedantic fans who obsess over made-up charts about power levels and distance will throw a conniption fit, and getting beyond the idea that the main series has to be about kings and lords and knights and masters and princesses and one special bloodline. In terms of the central theme, it's all about taking the "this story isn't what you thought it was" reveal from the end of The Empire Strikes Back and spreading it out over a whole film this time. And as a sub-theme, it's all about knocking down entrenched systems that aren't working anymore to allow a rising generation to flourish in their place. And that's why we get all that stuff on Canto Bight. I have my issues with the sequence on Canto Bight, and I'll get to that, but it's ridiculous to say that this part of the movie is this huge problem because it doesn't necessarily solve the issue that Rose and Finn set out to solve. I get why it might seem that way, because, again, yes, there's minor stuff here that doesn't totally work, but also because blockbuster movies over the past decade or so have gotten really into that Rube Goldberg plotting bullshit where there's no such thing as mistakes or false leads or dead ends, because everything has to be a part of a mechanism or a plan leading up to something, and someone has to have their hand on the wheel at all times. But, for now, the sequence is absolutely necessary and important because Star Wars is not a franchise about plot points, logic, or actions. It's a franchise about ideas and feelings. That's why they made the key to unlocking the ultimate power in the universe chilling the hell out, reaching out with your feelings, and going with the flow. And the point of this sequence is the idea of oppression and inequality and the feeling of righteous anger about it, and giving Rose the opportunity to vocalize those points and establish herself as the voice for that in this new trilogy. Because again, it's been kind of a missed opportunity for a long time that Star Wars tends to be preoccupied with the exploits of royals, elite religious orders, and other upscale characters at the expense of everyone else in the universe. And when we do meet ordinary people, they're either morally compromised scoundrels like Han, or elites who don't know they are elites yet like Luke or Rey briefly thought she might be. It's a really cool step to have this new character whose personality is basically a one-woman get-over-your-bullshit machine come to this glamorous place and point out explicitly that the villainy isn't just the space Nazis, it's the upper class that lets the space Nazis get away with things because they stand to benefit from it. You see, it's the non-mystical, practical, on-the-ground component to the need to get away from the narrowly classist vision of the whole Force Jedi-Sith thing going on in Luke and Rey's story. This is important stuff. It's the moral underpinning of the entire movie and very possibly the whole new trilogy. And also it's important that this is where Finn gets on board with having an ideological reason to stay with the Resistance, beyond just that his friends are there and he doesn't want to be a stormtrooper anymore. That's why that incredible final shot calls directly back to it. Rey's non-significant origin tells us that the Force can be strong in anybody, the kid with the broom tells us she's not the only one, and maybe something is happening with the Force that's giving us a lot of new Jedi-level users, almost like it had awakened and they told you what this was all about in the title of the first movie. And the kid with the broom, being one of the slave kids Rose and Finn meet here, tells us we're meant to see Rey and Luke and Kylo Ren, come to think of it, all arriving at the conclusion that the Jedi, or at least the old established structure of them, needs to be smashed in their story, and Rose's conviction that the galaxy's class inequality also needs to be smashed in her and Finn's story are part of the same equation. Plus, it's fun to have this movie's version of Mos Eisley be a hangout in space that's every bit as scummy, just, you know, rich people scummy. Also, if you're snarking that this character, Rose, is only here to appeal to China, please fuck right off. First, Chinese movie investors and audiences have made it plenty clear that they care more about movies and movie stars being made in China than they do about seeing Asian American representation improve in those same movies. And secondly, Kelly Marie Tran is not Chinese. At least look this shit up before you spout off with your bullshit. Let's get something straight here. Snoke's backstory was not a mystery left over from The Force Awakens. It's just some stuff you didn't know. That's like saying the Emperor's backstory was a mystery in the first Star Wars because they didn't show him or give you his whole origin story or even his proper name. If Snoke was a mystery, they would have made "we don't know who this guy is or where he came from" part of the plot. Or even just something that the other characters wondered about, and it isn't. A whole bunch of fanboys, myself included, assumed it was a mystery because this last decade or so of sci-fi fantasy filmmaking has trained us to assume that every character who plays an important role but doesn't get a massive info dump explaining where they came from must be some kind of huge surprise. Would I have liked to know what his deal was? I mean, I guess, but it's not really necessary. And you're fooling yourself if you think you were promised something in that vein by the last one. You were not. And what I like better is the brilliant misdirection of turning the Luke Vader Emperor sequence from Return of the Jedi on its head by having Ren just kill his ass, but also remuddying the distinction between the light side, dark side stuff by having him get over his subservience but not fix all the other stuff that's wrong with him. That's pretty cool. And even if it was only an excuse to shock Star Wars fans out of their complacency and further establish that you can't trust the old rules and expectations anymore, good. Because this is a fan base that's still mad at a one-note character with a nifty-looking helmet not getting a good enough death, so they could use a little more shocking. Everything about Leia is awesome in this, and I will hear no dreary bullshit otherwise. If the Force can keep you around walking the Earth as a blue energy ghost after you die, if you just concentrate hard enough, it can keep you barely alive in space. If you can pull objects toward you, you can pull yourself toward objects. That just makes sense. And Jesus, nerf-hurting Christ, how are any of you not just glad to finally see Leia use the Force? This is the last time we're going to get to see Carrie Fisher. Period. This was it. If they decide Leia gets to be a Jedi Super Saiyan, let them. It's the least they can do. This is not a flawless movie. The great ones rarely are, to be frank about it. You know, aim big, miss big. Like I said, as much as I think the canto bight business is thematically important and terrific on a character level, that any misstep in it is entirely redeemed by what it ends up meaning for the ending, it goes on a bit longer than it maybe needs to. I get that this is Star Wars and it always needs to be a constant run of escapes, captures, and cliffhangers because it calls back to old serials, but I don't necessarily know you needed another chase scene there. Minor thing, but there you go. I also really like how Poe's story in this one is all about how, even though we established that he's our new cool badass guy a la Han Solo, that his role in this one is basically to get repeatedly sent to his room by Mom until he learns not to be a reckless fuck-up. Thematically, that's all great, it fits the other overarching themes, etc. And the payoff with the Lightspeed suicide run, fucking amazing. One of the top 10 best holy shit moments in the series ever. Perfect. That having been said, while I get the point of it in a narrative sense, the back and forth misdirection of what the plan actually is, and who knows it and what Laura Dern is up to, is possibly one extra twist too many, maybe because it's coming right in the same space of plotting that the misdirection with Benicio del Toro's character is, and you get the sense that you want to space out that kind of business pacing-wise, or at least not rely too much on the audience figuring it out for themselves. Again, minor issue, but you can't win them all, and the payoff completely fucking worth it. And, yeah, I think that kind of covers it. Anyway, that's me on the stuff people are kind of whining about with this one, and I kind of dislike that that's what tends to dominate the conversation on big movies like this, partly because so much of it grows out of this weird feedback loop relationship that quote-unquote nerd culture has with its favorite properties, and we prize having our efforts memorizing trivia and obsessing over minutia, flattered to make us feel like the better class of audience by things we see coming because they can be predicted through lore, and I'm just sick of the entitlement side of that whole equation, honestly, because theme, emotion, characterization, tone, and filmmaking techniques used to convey all of those are so much more interesting and important than pedantic continuity chart bullshit, and I'll be thankful when some time has passed and that can be the discourse about this. Especially because the balance being struck here by Johnson between doing new things and bringing his own sense of style and pacing to the proceedings while still making it recognizable not just as a movie with Star Wars stuff in it, but as a Star Wars movie is truly impressive. It really reminds me of the best stuff in the old extended universe material or the side story comics that that also showed us new and different things, but managed to feel like it all belonged in the same place. That's not an easy trick. If anything, I'm apprehensive about now how we have to go back to J.J. Abrams for the next one. Look, J.J.'s not a bad filmmaker, but he's really only just solid without much distinct style or thematic thrust of his own, and it's going to be a bummer to come back down to that after seeing what turning in a genuine auteur loose on this material can do. I'm sure it'll be fine in the same way Force Awakens was fine, but going forward, I hope they keep trusting these to interesting filmmakers who are willing to experiment visually as well as narratively, and who'll join both of these directors in pushing to expand what the main cast can look like and be comprised of, because after Force Awakens, Rogue One, and now Last Jedi, yeah, I do happen to think it's pretty damn fucking cool and important that Star Wars is the one that's way out in front of the pack as the diverse, forward-thinking, barrier-breaking, global blockbuster franchise that we need. Damn right. Oh yeah, and Yoda being a puppet again, that's how you do fan service correctly.
Hey gang, here's a question that keeps coming up. If your handle is MovieBob, where are your movie reviews? Well, my old reviews are in a lot of places. You'll find many of them on my YouTube channel, but you'll find the brand new ones on Geek.com, an awesome site that's also your one-stop news source for science, TV, gaming, technology, nerd culture, the works. You can find all my reviews directly by going to geek.com/author/bchipman, because that's my real name, and you can get regular updates on all my reviews and all of Geek.com's other great content by signing up for their kick-ass newsletter at subscribe.geek.com. And don't forget to also subscribe to the Geek.com YouTube channel, where you'll find the videos that accompany my reviews and tons of other great content too. Remember, that's Geek.com, the Geek.com newsletter, and Geek.com on YouTube. Make sure you don't miss out on all the latest MovieBob reviews. You can also check out my own new website, MovieBob Central, where you'll find my blog, links to all my work, and shop for my books, ebooks, and future MovieBob products. And please remember to like these videos, share them with all of your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching another MovieBob production.